This is Glenn Spillman with Epic News, and we are here in Napa Valley at Silver Oak Winery. We are here at the wine release party of the 2011 Cabernet Napa Valley, and I am here with winemaker Daniel Barron, one of the original pioneers here at Silver Oak Winery. Daniel, tell our fans out there exactly what you do here, when you started, and we'll just go off on that one for now.
Well, I started here, Glenn, in 1994, and I'm in charge of all the production here at Silver Oak. So Silver Oak and Toomey Cellars, so the vineyards and the wine production. And I've got a great team in the vineyards and in the winery, a bunch of vineyard managers and winemakers that, we work together to produce these beautiful wines.
Okay, now last year we had an unfortunate thing happen here in Napa Valley. There was an earthquake, and the bridge down the way was out, so people had to kind of reroute themselves to come to the winery. Did you see any, influx in the crowd that came in? Did it diminish any, or did you guys just keep going steady?
No, we just kept going steady. We have, I shouldn't say it, but we have a history of a few natural disasters. Yeah. We had a fire here on February 2nd, it's the 10th anniversary, February 2nd, 2006. We had a fire, we had release day a few days later. The building was still smoking. Oh, wow. We still had release day. Hey. So, we soldier on, and our fans seem to be undaunted, and they find their way to great wine no matter what you do.
Right. You know what? That is dedication. The place catches on fire. It is still smoldering. The smoke going up, hey, to me that adds ambiance. That adds an awesome ambiance to a nice glass of Cabernet. Now, how many cases of wine, just today, how many cases of wine do you think you'll go through?
We'll probably go through about 100 cases of wine.
Okay, and there's, I would say, at least 1,000 people here right now, and this is 10 to 3. So how many people do you think will be in and out of the winery this whole day?
Somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000, we expect. And one of the things that is interesting, we're always striving to improve. And, it was probably over 10 years ago, we were having a beer afterwards, and it takes a lot of beer to make wine.
Amen, brother.
And we were looking at the stack of empties, and I turned to someone, I said, "What are all these empties doing here?" And they said, "Well, that's how many bottles we drank."
Wow.
And so we kind of sat there, we talked about it, and we said, if we tasted every one of those bottles before we poured it to our guests, we would know what our incidence of cork taint was, because who else opens 1,200 bottles in a sitting? And so we started that tradition, or that science, of having the whole production staff is calibrated. We know who is sensitive to TCA, which is the source of cork taint. So we taste through all the bottles, and what we've discovered is that due to our quality control, that our incidence of cork taint is 1/3%. Now, the industry norm right now is about 3%.
Okay.
So that gives you some indication of how maniacal we are about quality, and also that we actually test it and we know what it is in the wine. And we're striving for it to be 0, of course, but 0.3% is a lot better than what most wineries don't know. That's the other thing.
Right.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly. You know what? What job do you get to go to that requires you to drink on the job? I mean, how cool is that? Is that in the employee handbook? Hey, drinking on the job is okay. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, I know. It's great. It's great. It's we in the employee handbook. We had lawyers write it up, and the first edition said, no alcoholic beverages will be consumed on the premises, and we kind of looked at it and scratched our heads and said, well, that's not going to work. Yeah. How about you can't be drunk?
There you go. There you go. Just kind of get to that level a little bit, and then we'll just kind of taper you off. All right, now I asked this question of a lot of winemakers, and what do you say to people out there that are afraid to come to an event like this because they may be like, I don't know anything about wine? What do you say to those people?
Oh, this is a place where everyone is welcome. The music is great. The food is great. You don't need to be a wine expert to know something tastes good, and and it's really, the crowd is managed really well, so there's not a long wait for anything. So please don't hesitate. Come and join us and become part of the Silver Oak family.
All right, one more question. Well, not more than one, because when you say the Silver Oak family, how many people do you employ here at Silver Oak?
We employ about 120 people.
120 people. I mean, they're keeping jobs here in Napa Valley. And Napa Valley, for anyone that comes and visits California, period, especially if you're in San Francisco or the Sacramento area, you need to come to Napa Valley. There's over 400 wineries here. But in my opinion, and I've said this before, Silver Oak is the best Cabernet, not only in Napa Valley, not only in California, but I think in the whole United States of America. Right here in this winery, that's all they make is Cabernet. So they have perfected Cabernet. And again, what would you recommend people do that are getting into wine, not necessarily coming here, but that are just getting into wine? What would be the first step that you would tell them to do for a wine to taste that they can kind of ease themselves into?
Well, I'd start with Silver Oak.
Amen, brother.
And you mentioned Napa Valley, but when I said 120 employees, I'm including the Alexander Valley as well. So I think it's really important to taste different wine from different areas. And one of the things, and with our sister winery, Toomey, we have Sauvignon Blanc, we have Pinot Noir, we have Merlot, and then we have the two Silver Oak Cabernets, the Alexander Valley and the Napa. So right within the wines we produce, you can get a pretty good survey of the varieties and wines that have captivated civilization for centuries.
Right now, a lot of people ask me, and I'm going to let you explain this, but a lot of people ask me, Silver Oak has two wines. They have an Alexander and they have a Napa. Now, they're both the Cab. What makes Napa more expensive than the Alexander Valley?
Well, if we look at the price of the fruit, a ton of Napa Valley Cabernet sells for about $6,000, and a ton of Alexander Valley Cabernet sells for about $3,000.
There you go.
So, it's like, what makes a Porsche more expensive than a Ford? Well,
right.
Some of it's the quality, and some of it's the perception of the value. So, what puts a value on something is really hard to put your finger on. Napa, because of its reputation, because of the age of the vineyards and the age of the wineries, because of the renown, the proximity to San Francisco, is considered, a higher priced product than Alexander Valley. Is it always better? That's beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
It's subjective.
I just had someone come to the table and said, "I love this Napa you're pouring today. It's the first time I've liked Napa better than Alexander. Wow. I usually like Alexander better." And we hear that. We hear the reverse. I mean, it's personal taste is idiosyncratic, and
right.
God bless. That's wonderful.
Okay, and I know I said last question, but this really is the last question. It reminded me of what Ian Leggett said on the way up here to interview you. He said today has a special theme to it. Could you explain what that theme is and why?
Well, I hope I'm saying the same thing Ian was referring to, but the theme for us is American oak.
Yes, what is it?
And funny you should say that, because we're standing in this cellar filled with American oak barrels made from our cooperage in Missouri that we took sole ownership of. We've been partners for decades, but we took sole ownership last year. We now call it the Oak, and it's a beautiful enterprise in Higbee, Missouri, near Columbia. And we have all the chefs cooking on American oak.
Nice.
And, it's one of the parts of the signature of Silver Oak is the marriage of American oak and Cabernet Sauvignon. And we think it's why the wine is so popular with the American consumer, because it's a comfort flavor for right. Americans. We really understand and are familiar with the taste of American oak, the vanillin, the slight hint of dill, which marries so beautifully with that wild aspect of Cabernet Sauvignon. These barrels are the wood is air dried. We actually own some of the forest, the white oak forest we source the wood from. So we have total control of how these barrels are made, and you can taste it in the wines.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Daniel Barron say a lot of things in the interview, and he used a lot of wine lingo. Don't be afraid of that. I suggest that you learn about wine the best you can. If you have questions, if you want to know what something is, Google it, check it out. But also, if you're in any proximity of Silver Oak, come check these guys out. They will do tastings, private tastings. They will educate you on anything that you want to know about not only their wine, but how wine is produced, how their wine is made, and anything that you want to know. They're very patient with you. That's one of the reasons why I love these guys. Thank you, Mr. Barron, for the interview. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Glenn Spillman with Epic News, and you can catch this interview on Epic News on our YouTube channel and Epic News online on our magazine. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks.